Hey everybody, how's it going? It's Mr. Williams, your favorite history teacher. I am going to do something a little different here. I'm going to actually read the online textbook that we have that I've been posting for you. Normally, I would give this to you in a Google, let you read it in a PDF, and then have to fill out questions in a Google form. I'm doing the opposite. I'm going to put this as an Edpuzzle, obviously. That's how you're getting there. Obviously, post it in Google Classroom like normal. Again, make sure you go to Google Classroom. All right, whatever class you're in, it doesn't matter. It could be my Block 2 class. You might be in my Block 3 class. Just, again, look over here all the time. Look for your stuff that needs to be done. This is going to be one of them. Again, I'm splitting the reading up into a couple different videos, like quick 10, 15-minute tops kind of videos. So I'm leaving myself an alarm right now. I'm hoping that at the end, obviously, I'll have the questions for you. You can skip through this video just because if you like to do the reading on your own, you should be able to, and then answer the questions, obviously, as you go there. Now, granted, when you skip, I'm going to have questions that pop up in times. So you might have to skip to a spot, answer a question, keep on skipping, but at least it's there. If you don't and you would like me to read it to you, I'm going to do that now, and I don't want to waste any time, so here we go. Okay, I'm going to use the writing tools too. I'm going to use a lot of different little tools here and there, and I'm going to have to move myself around. So if you don't want to see me, obviously, I got larger, then obviously I'm there as well. Okay, so I might even get rid of myself at some point. We'll see. All right, so the Second Industrial Revolution. This is chapter 26 in our online textbook. This is going to be all the time period that we would essentially call the Gilded Age. Remember, the Gilded Age is called that because gild means to cover in gold. And it's kind of the idea that things are really nice on the outside, but still bad on the inside. So the United States is growing and expanding, and everything looks nice, and the Statue of Liberty and all these. So it looks nice symbolically on the outside, but on the inside, there's corruption. There's government not really giving a crap about the people living in the country. Poverty, civil unrest, social justice issues, women not being able to vote. There's a lot of problems there. And obviously in the South, you still have your Jim Crow issues with race since the Compromise of 1878, so 77. So it's bad. This is not a good time in American history. But for some people, it's a great time. John D. Rockefeller, with oil. You've got the steel industry with Carnegie, JP Morgan with banking and financing. So you've got these big businesses happening and workers not getting rights. So again, it's kind of weird. It looks good on the outside, but not good on the inside. All right, so anyway, done with my spiel. Let's get into the reading. The Second Industrial Revolution. In the late 1800s, all right, industry was revolutionized for the second time, Second Industrial Revolution, duh. Okay, a second industrial revolution after the Civil War. I remember the Civil War ends in 1865. So again, I'm going to use my pen here. Let's go blue. I like blue. All right, so again, think about it. The Civil War. All right, the Civil War happens between 1861 and 1865. There will be no other war that America ever gets involved in that Americans have died as much as the Civil War. Why? Because we're actually killing other Americans. So it's kind of that concept. All right, just makes sense. The U.S. became one of the leading industrial powers in the world. When we're talking about industrial, we're talking about machines. We're talking about money. We're talking about products. So the more industry, the more money. Okay. Railroads grew by leaps and bounds. Okay, so we have steel and railroads are the big ones that grow. Okay, business tycoons. Tycoon's a funny word for just saying somebody who makes a lot of money through industry, through a product, through making something. So yeah, it's kind of one of those interesting things. All right, notably, the railroad barons. All right, barons is a word. Usually it means like kings and queens, and you're a part of like a hierarchy, a monarchy, right, where it's passed through the bloodline. So it's kind of a funny word on that, but the idea is that people are making money on transportation. All right, Andrew Carnegie makes money on steel. Steel is used in everything today. It's used in the construction for your houses sometimes. It's used in reinforced beams on any skyscraper, on all buildings. Our school right now literally has reinforced beams in the corners. So you get the idea. That's kind of how that's done. It says those who rose to prominence in the railroad industry flourished, and life changed for people at every income level. Okay, so if you were poor, you had an opportunity to get a job, obviously, and you would work a lot. You work like almost 12-hour days almost. That would improve, obviously. But poor became not as poor. The rich became super rich. And money. Okay, money. Okay, so you get the idea. That is how it's done. Now, inventions. All right, today, why do you think there's so many like infomercials and commercials that like try to sell you things? ShamWow, Slap Chop, just different things. Why are there so many products? Why is Shark Tank, if you've never seen the show, why is that a show? Well, it makes sense. Inventions. People are always trying to create something that they know people are going to want to buy and then kind of set themselves up to be rich and not have to work ever again. Okay, so there's that. The industrial growth, here we go. Industrial growth, especially in the railroad sector, fueled a demand for new technology. When people are making more money, they want to think of ways to make more money without having to work. Okay, inventions. Okay, we call this thing patents. All right, when you go to a governmental building, all right, there's a patents office almost. Today it might be more online, but if you have an invention, you have to have a form and fill it out and say what the invention is and what the specifications are and all that kind of stuff. So let's say, for instance, you invent an app. Okay, so you invent an app on your phone. You have to then create a patent saying it's your app, saying you are the only one who created it, that you are the person who created it, what it does, how much bandwidth it needs, or whatever, all those things. You need to know all of that, okay? Have like everything encrypted and know that, and then fill out a form, obviously, send it into the patents office that is your app. So if somebody tries to take your idea, you can sue them, all right, for, again, fraudulent things. That's not your thing. So industrial growth, again, especially in the railroad sector, okay, because of railroads, fueled the demand for new technology. And each new innovation, invention, led to many others. Many of America's most significant technological advantages and developments came about in the late 19th century. Okay, remember, when we hear the word century, I want you to think of the word subtract. Okay, so for instance, if it's the 19th century, I want you to subtract 1, and that's how many hundreds of years you get. It's the 1800s. Okay, if I were to make it the 20th century, you minus 1, and you get the 1900s. If it's the 30th century, for some reason, we're not there yet, obviously, you won't be alive. 30th century, you minus 1, it'll be the 2900s. So anytime you hear the word century, minus 1, that gives you the hundreds. All right, anytime you have the hundreds and you need to figure out the century, add 1, okay, and you figure out what the century is, okay? All right, I'm moving on, all right, just because I got to erase some things, all right, and I'm sure some questions will be popping up pretty soon on your screen. Bear with me, I'm almost done. Erase. I'm trying. Mr. Williams, just go. Cool. All right, we're back, I think. There we go. Cool. All right, so American inventions galore. Let me move myself over to the right for now. There we go. All right, actually, can I move myself up? There. Oh my gosh, I'm up here in the corner. So American inventions galore, all right? The idea is that there's several inventions that happen on here. And on this particular paper, okay, on these particular pages, you have so many inventions. And again, this is from 1851 all the way to 1908. So we're talking a good 50-year span of inventions, all right, which is pretty cool. The big inventions that I want you to pay attention to on this particular page are pretty simple. The telegraph. So the telegraph's one. That's our cool thing. So hold on, all right, sorry about that. So we're back. Obviously, the big one I talked to you about was the telegraph. The telegraph happened in 1866. There was a telegram system that was created during the Civil War that only the North had. So Abraham Lincoln was able to send things to Ulysses S. Grant while he was out there fighting on the lines, and they could send messages back and forth through a telegram, and it was really tedious. They used Morse code, so it was dot, 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 dash, 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 So dots were just quick seconds, and dashes obviously were longer seconds on the telegram. And literally that was how they had to do it. They had people who decoded this kind of stuff. And Abraham Lincoln was able to figure out what was going on. He was almost like a commander on the field without actually having to be on the field. He was virtually socially distanced during that time period, which is kind of funny. But at the same time, there it was. So there was the telegram, and then obviously the transportation with the railroad that helped the North beat the South. All right. Without those two things, who knows? All right. We might have a different flag right now. We might have some different values pushed down from the top. So the telegram and telegraph system are very important. 1866 here. All right. I would also go with 1876. All right. Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone. We all have a phone in our pocket right now. All right. Some of us, obviously, iPhones. You can thank Alexander Graham Bell for being a zombie and just sitting there and, texting each other constantly, Snapchatting, whatever it is that you do today. All right. I'm not trying to be one of those guys who's like, but you get the idea. All right. Last two here I think are interesting because they're both like kind of famous. 1903, Orville and Wilbur Wright, all right, brothers in North Carolina, Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, created the first airplane. And again, it wasn't much. It was just barely kind of a thing. You had to run, start, and take off from there. And then obviously it would self-propel its plane. Very interesting though, cool. You can still go there today and check out the whole thing. They have like a whole setup there. And then 1908, Henry Ford creates the Model T, and he uses a thing called the assembly line, which we use for almost everything today. We use it for in restaurants. I've worked in a couple different restaurants. It's almost like that. McDonald's does this all the time, where you're good at one thing. You're specialized at one particular thing. I'm the hamburger guy. I'm assembling the plates. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. I'm a fry cook. I'm the broiler. And you do different things. And what that does essentially is it helps make it so that way I get really good at something. But the problem is that I can be replaced pretty easily. So, again, the guy who created McDonald's, his name is Ray Kroc. All right, Ray Kroc would have made a lot of money because he was able to use workers who were working for cheap, working quickly, and if you needed to, you could replace them and then just train somebody to do one thing over and over and over again. Same thing with Henry Ford and the Model T. He would have one person put the lug nuts on the tires, one person put the steering wheel in, one person and it just would go boom, boom, boom. And by the time that you started, you had pieces. By the time you're done, you have a transmission, you have the whole car pretty much put together. So again, kind of interesting. What I guess the biggest things that I want you to focus on here, and I'll just do a quick little writing here, is the assembly line, what we call specialization and the division of labor, okay, which makes sense. You're specialized at one thing, and you're dividing people up into categories so that way they do one job and one job only. So it's more money for Henry Ford, and basically you have to show up to work. You have to do your job. Otherwise, you could be replaced. All right. And again, this made cars very much affordable for anybody who was living pretty much in what we would call the middle class. All right. Had a decent job where they could have a savings. They can buy a car. Funny joke about Henry Ford's Model T. All right. The funny joke is that he said, I guess it's funny. He said, you can have the Model T in any color you want as long as it's black. Because the idea was that they just didn't have any other colors. You only could buy the Model T car in black. All right. So there you go. Moving on down. Yeah. Awesome. That worked. All right. Moving on down. Let me go one more page, and then after that, I'm going to hit pause, and then you'll just answer some questions that pop up. All right. With the new inventions, obviously, also came a higher demand for fuel. All right. Edwin L. Drake, all right, in 1859, he discovered a thing called crude oil. All right. Essentially, you're pumping into the ground. Sometimes it would actually just flow up to the ground itself, depending on the deposit of crude oil. Crude oil literally is a non-renewable resource. It is a fossil fuel. It is something that comes up through both natural gas and obviously what you want to talk about it. It's a fossil fuel. It is something that was once living a long time ago and has now become this weird black oil, and substance, and you can pump it out of the ground through obviously steel pipes. And it has to be drilled. It has to be drilled down into the ground. If you're ever interested in this, they do a lot of drilling now out in the ocean just because it's easier, in the sense of getting it is easier. Storing it, shipping it, easier, just because it's all on boats anyway. But there's some really interesting stories out there for people who are interested in this, but for drilling. All right, drilling in itself, fracking is very big today. All right, same kind of concept. So you would take the crude oil, which would then be turned into kerosene for lighting lamps, and then later on used in gasoline. All right, gasoline, obviously, we use it in almost everything. Every machine that you can think of, it can be gas powered. My lawnmower, gas powered. Some people's, leaf blowers, gas powered. Without gas, who knows? Some people say it's a bad thing because, we're fighting in certain areas of the world because we need oil. All right, so that's kind of the point. Pennsylvania became a very big petroleum industry. All right, a lot of gas, fracking, that kind of stuff. All right, petroleum industry began and started to skyrocket in that area. And then later on, again, Pittsburgh for steel. All right, oil, you get the idea. It's kind of coincides. All right, the corporation. You know what? I'm going to stop here, and then we'll go through the rest of the page afterwards because it has to do more with money. It's a completely different topic. So I'm going to pause here, answer some questions, and try your best in the next video. Okay?